Well, first of all, I just really want to thank everyone personally who's attended this AGM. I want to thank our members that aren't here with us today for buying memberships and helping us get where we are today. It's really exciting for me, and I just can't help but think when you've been in dire situations and you finally see a light, how exciting that is. And I want to share a little story that I've done a fair amount of scuba diving in my life, and I really enjoy it. There's just something about being weightless in the water and having that total comfort of breathing air and feeling just totally free and independent. But I was down in the Cayman Islands, and I was told by some individual people that, oh, you got to go to the north side of the island and dive at night. And there's a little boat launch that's been carved out of the rocks and they said the name of the restaurant that you go to, you park there and you walk out. And so we went there, and it was a windy night, and the wind was coming in from the north, and the waves were coming in about 5 feet high and just crashing in. And partner says, well, there's just no way we can get in there. But there was a steel ladder that was attached to that wall that you could climb down. And so when you got down in there, you went to the bottom 5 feet under the water. It was calm enough that you could swim out, and out we went. And it was at nighttime. And so we got down and we swam out about 100 yards. We resurfaced. We looked at our compasses, looked where we were, and took a look at the shoreline. And it was amazing to me. There was only one light. I couldn't see anything else in the darkness, just one light at that boat launch. And says, well, that'll be good. When we come up, we'll just be able to spot that light, and back we'll go. And so down we went, and we started enjoying the dive. And because we were kind of right up there on the northwest tip, we obviously went east, and going along 15-20 minutes, and thought, well, you know, we want to be extra safe. It's nighttime. We'll turn around and we'll head back. And anyways, we thought, well, let's just jump up and surface so we know exactly where we are and where we're heading, and we'll take, we'll get our compass and we'll get our direction so we know what we need to do, because we were about 500 yards out from the shore. So we pop up, and the waves are still kind of rough, but we looked up and down the shoreline. We looked at our compasses again for north south. We couldn't see anything. It was blackout and there was no lights, and one kind of felt hopeless. And we knew all along that north shore that if we were to try and land and climb out, we couldn't. There's only one place out. That was with that light, and where they'd carved out of the rocks, and they had a steel ladder that we could climb up. So we thought, well, we're pretty sure, we've gone east. And so we turned our compass 180 degrees, and we went back down, and we started to swim. And immediately we realized that, wow, the current was stronger than we were. And so we'd been drifting for 20 minutes away from the island and out to the east. And long story short, it was all that we could do. And we got up on the surface for a while and had to swim into the wind to preserve our oxygen so we could get out. But it was a long time, and we probably swam on the surface for a half hour, and realizing we were making very little headway. But finally we got to that point where we saw the light, and we were so elated and grateful that, wow, that's where we got to go. So we went back down, and we were able to swim over and get out. But the reason I wanted to share that story is because there's too many Albertans right now that light has gone out, and it's heartbreaking. I had a grandmother call me yesterday. She runs a small business. She was shut down. She's the guardian of her 2 grandchildren, and she announced to the people in her small town that she was going to open up for business. And she had the RCMP and Alberta Health Services show up at her house, and she was told that if you open up that business, we're going to change the locks, we're going to arrest you, and we will be coming and picking up your children and taking them into custody, and you won't be able to get them back very easily. And it's just absolutely heartbreaking, the number of stories that I have heard from Albertans and the way they're being treated. We all saw the video of Ocean Wiesblick, and the way he was treated for skating on an open rink with his friends. And I've gone to several rallies and spoke at them. And again, it's just unbelievable to me. I would have never, ever believed, if you were to ask me a year ago, that we were going to have a police state where we can't go out and make a living and our livelihood because the government's going to say it's too dangerous to be out there. I just personally can't believe the situation we're in. And that's why I'm so grateful for each and every one of you that realize this and have joined our party. People talk about splitting the vote. There is no vote to split if you're a freedom fighter, if you're a lover of self-respect and you're a believer in the individual freedoms, the property and the right to make a living, the right for freedom of association, the right for freedom of speech, the right for freedom of assembly. These things have all been stripped away in a draconian way. We've had nothing but fear-mongering from our province, from our health officials and from our premier, from the World Health Organization. It's just incredible to me to see the propaganda that has come out there and the fear-mongering over this COVID-19. But it was even more interesting to me that after Biden was sworn in a few days ago, how all of a sudden there's different announcements coming out. The World Health Organization says, you know what, the PCR test is too high. We need to lower it. And all of a sudden they're changing their tune. They just announced in the States that, yeah, we're going to allow a drug that's been permitted forever, for 60 years, it's been safe, to actually use it when they've been begging for months. The doctors, the College of Physicians have been on side with the government and the health officials with draconian measures on allowing professionals to do what they need to do. But anyways, like I say, I just can't say how inspired I am with the Albertans that I have met since I've come on board here. The board of directors have just been incredible. The amount of hard work and the effort that they've been putting in is amazing. And again, as Trudeau and as our premier and our health officials continue to put the squeeze on us, there's more and more Albertans every day realizing that we have no other choice. Our only hope is the Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta. And they realize that they're going to have a hard fight. It reminds me of another story. I've got a friend that's wanted to climb Mount Robson, the highest mountain in the area down here. But like all high mountains, the weather's very unpredictable. A few years ago, finally, after her third attempt, she made it up, but her husband wasn't able to make it. Got altitude sickness and didn't make it. This challenge that we have before us, this mountain that we have to climb for freedom, for sovereignty, it's not an easy one. We're going to have to work hard, but it's the best one. It's the only one, in my opinion, if we want a future for our children and our grandchildren. That's why I'm in it. That's why many people on the board. We got some young people on the board, and it's about their children. Between my wife and I, we have 17 grandchildren that are just wonderful individuals that deserve the opportunity to go out and enjoy life, to have their freedoms and to be able to assemble, to worship the way they feel that is appropriate for them, and to make a living and not have the government shut them down. This is a big, audacious goal. It's one that many people will laugh and scorn and say, oh, it can't be done, but it can be. Don't know how many of you are familiar with me and my political history, but it's not the first time I've been so upset with the government that I decided to run. Back in 2004, I ran for the first time, upset with the mad cow disease and the way it was handled. I was upset with the oligopolization of the electrical industry and what it was doing to our business, and felt that we needed to have a different opportunity. Was 3% in the polls, was running in a riding that had been conservative the entire history of Alberta, and says that nobody could beat them. Well, we won. Second time was in Calgary Glenmore, and we just merged the parties. I'd stepped down as leader of the Wild Rose Alliance Party. Danielle Smith well, actually the leadership race was on, and she asked me because Ron Stevens stepped down in Calgary Glenmore, and it's amazing how life stories coincide with others. But I grew up and I was living in Haysboro again after I'd stepped down and was starting a business venture there. And Danielle says, well, we need you to run, Paul. We need someone who's credible. And I said, well, Danielle, I really don't want to get back into politics. She says, oh, you don't need to worry, Paul. You can't win. We were at 3% in the polls. Well, we won that riding, and you saw where Wild Rose got to before they got tempted with glitter and fame and being part of government, and oh, join us and together we'll rule and do better for the province. And Albertans were deeply disappointed in that move, and not one of those floor crossers got reelected. We understand why. But long story short, we went through 4 years of pain of the NDP. And again, when I was in the House and the NDP were there, I brought forward legislation for recall. And I continue to say today, if we really care about the future for our children and grandchildren, if we really care that we want a government that's accountable, we need to have recall. It's been brought forward into the legislature 3-4 times in the last 15 years. It's been rejected every time. Wild Rose Independence Party, that if I am the fortunate leader, that will be one of the first bills that will pass, and then we'll have a referendum on it, so it's sealed by the people. I was in the House when Premier Stelmach rescinded Premier Klein's balanced budget legislation. Only Premier Klein would have given us a referendum to actually secure that balanced budget legislation. I don't think we'd be in the situation that we are today. It's one of the great follies of government is that our Constitution doesn't constrain government the way it needs to. They don't have to balance a budget. They can buy votes with our children and grandchildren's money, and they're very, very adept at it. They dangle that out there, and people buy into it. But so anyways, it's a huge problem, but there is a light, and that light is the Wild Rose Independence Party. And I'm grateful for those that are helping to support it and get along. But, you know, it was just a year and a half ago that Jason formed government, and so many of us were so excited thinking, wow, we're going to get back on track, that there's hope here. But we quickly have found out that Jason has betrayed us. His promises for jobs, pipelines, and standing up to Ottawa have just been a complete failure. I've shared this before, but you know, TC Energy applied for the Nova Gas transmission expansion line here in Alberta about 3-4 years ago. The new Canadian energy regulator gave it the go-ahead on the 21st or the 19th of February last year. It's coming up, you know, 1 year in another month that this Canadian energy regulator says, yep, you've met all the conditions, environmentally, everything else you've done, your consultations, you've got the go-ahead. What happened? It was hijacked by cabinet, who with their new bill, they get to give a final political approval. It's not the rule of law anymore. It's political decisions at the end, and they didn't release it. They're supposed to make that decision in 30 days, in 90 days, and on the 19th of May this spring, that pipeline should have gone ahead. It was a $1.4 billion pipeline, desperately needed here in Alberta, 5,500 jobs, and then there's the domino effect from that was all taken away from us. And it wasn't until the 19th of October that Justin finally came out, and I have to say I was surprised, and he gave the approval to go ahead. But what Albertans don't really understand, and Jason didn't state it very well, was that, wow, they've added 5 more conditions onto that pipeline. 2 of those are open-ended conditions. And what Jason says, we're thrilled. We're thrilled that we get to build this pipeline, and we'll help TC Energy meet those new requirements, those new conditions, those political conditions that have come from Ottawa. This is unacceptable. He should have, on the 20th of February, said, we've got the go-ahead and we're going to build that pipeline. It was in our own jurisdiction, our own province. They had no business being there, and Jason failed to get a pipeline. He failed to get the jobs, and he certainly failed to stand up to Ottawa. I absolutely agree with Lloyd Snellgrove, who spoke this morning, that we should be cutting off. We should be phoning Ottawa, and we should be phoning DC and saying, you have 24 hours to rescind your presidential order and get Keystone back online, or the Alliance pipeline is being shut down. It's cold out there right now. This is our only opportunity to bargain. And to sit there and say we don't agree is unacceptable. If they don't want fossil fuels, shut the tap off. I would rather Alberta suffer for 2 more weeks or 2 months or whatever and not get that revenue than to let them limp through winter using our natural gas, and then we're shut down for how long? It's appalling. The deja vu here just drives me crazy that in 2008, I was actually excited when Obama canceled XL Keystone for the first time. I thought, wow, we got a Western premier in there, a Western prime minister in there. He's from Calgary. He knows how critical this is. Our Constitution absolutely says, what can we do? It's in the national interest of Canada. And instead, they limped along from 2008 to 2015 and never got the Northern Gateway pipeline built. That should have been built by them. We should have had access to tidewater, and our previous government and current governments has failed us. It's disgusting. It's almost criminal in my mind what they've done to us and what they continue to do to us. And we have no province that's going to, no provincial leader, and we certainly have no federal leader that's going to stand up for us. And that's why we need to have our own government, our own country, to stand up for ourselves, where we could actually retaliate with something that is necessary for them. But anyways, it's upsetting to me, and I just think that we need to gather our troops. We need to talk to Albertans. We need to build our memberships. We need to stand on the principles of freedom and justice for every individual. We need to earn the respect of Albertans. Let them know that they can trust us. We'll be accountable through recall. We'll actually allow for citizens' initiative referendums that are binding on the government, and not just look at them like a poll and says, well, it's nice that you've done that. But the Wild Rose message will not simply be to criticize the government. We'll present a constitution that not only will ensure Alberta to be the best place in the world to live and work and raise a family, but a place where we'll be masters of our own house. Yes, we'll need to take all of the steps to be independent. And that kind of reminds me of another little story I wanted to share with you. Not a story, it's actually a Hollywood movie. And so often Hollywood seems to dictate and people follow that. But Julia Roberts starred in Sleeping with the Enemy. Quite a story. It's heart-wrenching to see what this individual went through and the fear that she was under. But she prepared for 2 years. She learned how to swim. She learned everything that she needed to do in order to get away from that individual that was oppressing her and basically holding her hostage. And it's the same for Alberta. There's many Albertans that are very fearful and think, well, like, how could we survive on our own? We don't have, any tidewater. And so what the Wild Rose is showing and proposing is the things that we need to do in order to put our house in order. There's 2 things, like I say, that Jason should have done. One, he should have tell them you got 24 hours or we're shutting down the gas lines. And number 2, he should put Ottawa on notice that we're creating the Alberta Revenue Agency, and we'll be collecting every tax dollar that every Albertan pays right here in Alberta for Albertans. We'll be the ones who decide where that money needs to be spent and where it's most advantageous for Albertans. We need to do that. We need to put a police force in place under a new, and again, the Honorable Lloyd Snellgrove talked about this, our justice system. Currently, we have a legal system, a system with loopholes that allows criminals to just go in and throw out the revolving door, and they're back out in the street often before the officers are finished with the paperwork. It's a joke. We need the victim to be protected and the perpetrator to be held accountable. It's just wrong to think that the victim is the biggest, is re-victimized because of our legal system. We can actually put more people out in rural Alberta. I could go on with several stories, just sad stories of rural Albertans that can't protect their property from these thieves that come out. And again, that's for another day. But so we need to take control of our revenue agency. We need to take control of our justice system with our own police force. We need to get our own pension plan. And again, the fear mongering that's going on out there is amazing. But the fact of the matter is that Albertans send $2 or $3 billion more down to the Canada Pension Plan than Alberta seniors receive back. We would immediately be in a plus position and be able to start building an actual pension fund, much like Quebec has, or the Ontario Teachers Association. And that's what we need here for Albertans. We could reduce the premiums for the workers, and we could enhance the premiums for our seniors, which is just a positive thing. We need to have our own environmental act. It's so critical that we have, I just want to say, I don't know, Laurentian elites is too nice of a word for these hypocrites who jet set around the world and hold big meetings and have huge houses and burn more carbon fuels than many multiple families, and yet they preach and tell us that, oh, you can't and shouldn't have that, it's bad, it's hurting the it's hurting the world environment. And again, when you read the scientific information, boy oh boy, you need to take and give your head a shake and ask, what are we trying to do here? We're just attacking humanity. And again, Patrick Moore from Greenpeace just has some incredible information and videos to watch. Michael Moore, as Dr. Moldry pointed out, that when people actually do look at the facts and read them, we realize that, wow, this computer modeling that has been used for the climate is kindergarten stuff compared to the computer modeling that they use for COVID and in the fear tactics to basically oppress the people and to take away their freedoms. So we need those things. We need an immigration policy that's going to work for Albertans and Alberta businesses and their families. But all of these things are unique things that the current governments do not offer and will not offer. And so when you talk about splitting the vote, it's just not true. What we're going to offer is a future for Albertans where Alberta makes those decisions. We're not going to turn over those decisions to Ottawa or to Paris. We'll make them here. And that's really the question. Do you want an opportunity to be free and to be able to make a living and to develop our resources in a responsible environmental way? Or do we want Ottawa to shut us down and Paris to vilify us and our industry and our workers? And to me, it's just a no-brainer. We need to do this if we're going to pass it forward to our children and grandchildren with an opportunity. There's just so many things that we can and we need to do. Can take care of our premiers, our seniors, and again, the Alberta Employment Insurance Program is just unbelievable when you look at the numbers and that you realize that Alberta workers are subsidizing every other jurisdiction so that they don't have to pay as much as what we do in order for them to have their employment insurance. I guess I want to share one other story, that when I was sitting in the legislature, and I actually sat to the left of Rachel Notley and Brian Mason, if you can believe that. And that's really something I always used to say, well, you guys are further right than me. And we laugh about that a little bit. But I remember one time we were debating the budget, and they'd brought forward the budget that they were estimating the barrel of oil at $85 a barrel. And Rachel and Brian were just scathing mad at them and said that they were ripping off Albertans, billions of dollars because the price of oil was going to go to 95. And anyways, long story short, because it's quite an interesting one, the long discussion that we had after Rachel sat down, I said, Rachel, you don't seem to understand that we just can't go raise the wages of our nurses and our teachers and our firemen and our policemen because you think the price of oil is going to go up. But even worse, we can't go and hire a bunch more. We actually need to balance our budget. This is critical and important. And she turned around and just spewed it out to me, and he says, Hinman, what's the matter with you? Don't you know that nurses and doctors and firemen, they all pay wage, they all pay taxes, they contribute to our society. And this is a major problem on the socialists versus the conservative or the economist that understands the importance of balancing a budget. Albertans pay income tax to Alberta. Corporations pay income tax to Alberta. Alberta gathers those income taxes, and then we hire our civil servants and our bureaucrats and our frontline workers, which we're grateful to have. But what they don't seem to understand, and where the government needs to stop and say, we can't be doing this. If we're paying a teacher or a nurse $100,000 a year from what we call producers of wealth versus consumers of wealth, out of that $100,000, which is all come from taxpayers' money, all of a sudden another 30 or 35,000 of that is retaxed and sent back out to Ottawa. And so when we actually increase the number of teachers, nurses, senior caregivers, policemen, all of critical frontline services that we need and appreciate, we're taxing Albertans more. And Alberta, a long time ago, should have shut down the tap and say, look, those individuals are going to pay their taxes back to Alberta, and that money stays here. We can't be sending taxpayers' taxes a second time out to Ottawa and then trying to balance our budget. We send billions of dollars out there, 40 to 50 billions of dollars, and we don't have a lot to show for it. We support the military, we support intelligence. All of those things we're very excited and willing to do, but we can't be sending out billions of dollars and then, as Premier Kenney's been doing, requesting $6 billion back in order just to meet his operational costs and being told, well, there's only $700 million. Bottom line, it's unacceptable. Alberta's got a stranglehold on our economy, on our industry, on our livelihood. And if we don't have a provincial government that's going to stand up and keep those taxes here and to be able to fight to export our oil and gas and our beef and our other products, we're not going to be have province for much longer. And we actually will see that the equalization payments will stop, because we'll be a have-not province. And I can guarantee you that the Constitution will change then, because they will not send money to Alberta because they've crippled our economy and our future. But I just want to talk a little bit about that plan and what's so critical and what we need to do. We need to grow our membership. So excited how many phone calls I get every day of individuals who want to start a CA. We don't have a constituency association over here. What do I got to do to get it going? We tell them to go to the website, wildrose.party, and they get on there. And we got awesome people on the board that are helping out and getting that done. But that's the critical thing that needs to be done, is we need to get our 87 CAs up and operating, and then we need those boots on the ground. We need to talk to our friends, we need to talk to our co-workers, our family, and people that we run into and say, you know what, that beacon of light, that hope, where we're going to get out of this dark economy where we're spending more money than we're making, is there with the Wild Rose Independence Party. They're going to get control of our taxes. They're going to be there. Go to our website. You know, as Dr. Muldry pointed out, there's been thousands of hours go into there. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. And we are quite excited. Dennis and I have talked to a few individuals that have pointed out some better ideas, and we're looking forward to our first policy convention to enhance what we've started with today. But we can do that. But by growing the CAs and growing our membership, that's the solution. The media, mainstream media, is brutal on us. I met with Danielle Smith back in December, and she told me of her decision that she was going to be stepping down because of the censorship. She says, Paul, I can't speak on the things that we should and need to be talking about. I just can't carry on with this. And I was just sick about it. I said, well, what are we going to do? And she says, well, I don't know, but I can't do it in Main Street media. And she announced, a couple of weeks ago that she was stepping down, a very important conservative voice that we're losing on the Main Street media. And that's going to be hard to replace. And so what we need to get that connectivity amongst our members. They need to be going to our website. We still have a problem, and it was evident again this morning that when we try to send out our email, Gmail especially likes to put our emails in the trash. You need to go into your contacts and you need to put in there contact@wildrose.party so that it comes into your inbox. And it's something that we're going to work hard on going forward here, to get that contact with each and every member that we have, and for other people to join in on our conversations. It could be us just as easy as not that gets removed off of Twitter and Facebook here in a week or in a month or 3 months. We have to have an alternative plan on how we're going to communicate. So we need your cell numbers, we need your emails, and you need to have ours in your contact. But building that membership, that's really what it's all going to be about. When I've been successful in the past, it's been out going and door knocking for 6 months, talking to people, sharing the ideas, saying we're going to be accountable, and then showing them our plan on how we're going to balance the budget, how we're going to fix our health care. I mean, that's another issue that would take a whole day that we can talk about. And Dr. Modry's written, a 64-page algorithm for healthcare and what we need to do. But bottom line, this global funding is going to hospital and central government making all the decisions doesn't work. Especially during this COVID area. Different hospitals, they're not under strain. Some are. We saw early on, there's an outbreak down in Brooks and High River. Those are the areas to focus and isolate, and they got those under control. But this blanket central government shut everybody down, except for a few jet setters that knew that, look, it's not that serious and we can go, but we're not accountable, so we get to go. And I, again, totally disgusted that Jason, who was so adamant about floor crossers and says they couldn't do it because people vote for the party that they want representing them in the House, and that some person shouldn't be able to cross the floor. Well, he just kicked out Lesser Slave Lake's representative and said that he can't be part of government caucus anymore, and he penalizes the people from Lesser Slave Lake, but yet he won't allow them to actually fire them through recall, which is something else that our premier promised and is miserably failed on that accountability. But anyways, we need to build our memberships. We need to get those donations coming in. I don't think most people realize that just $15 a month from every one of our members, we would develop a war chest that would be incredibly valuable on getting our message out, whether it's billboards and pamphlets, ads in the newspapers. We need to increase our revenue. We're grateful for those who have donated, and we wouldn't want anybody to jeopardize that's struggling in these tough times to be making a donation. But if you can afford 50 cents a day, $15 a month, it would make a huge difference. Two things that will make all the difference on where we are in 6 months from now. One is if we can get those donations, but more important, if every member can just find one more person to buy a membership every month for 6 months, we would be in a position to win the election in 6 months. That doubling effect. It's not that hard to go out and find one person. And so that's what I'm encouraging you to do, to go find one person once a month. And like I say, maybe you have to talk to 3 or 4 at the start, where we need to get some brochures that are printed and on the website that you can print off or that we can send to you to be able to talk to people. But it's about building our membership, doubling it every month for 6 months. We'll be ready for them. But in closing, I'm humbled at the situation that we're in, the devastation that so many Albertans are being put through right now. But it's just exciting to me with the work and the foundation that we have here, the Wild Rose Independence Party, and what we offer to Albertans. Are there naysayers? Absolutely, there's going to be a bunch of naysayers, but don't let them stand in your way. Be like those 2 shoe salesmen who land for the first time in a tropical island, and they get off and they look around, and the one person realizes and says, oh man, there's not a single person who has shoes on their feet here, and he turns around and jumps back on the boat. The other guy comes off and he takes those shoes from the other guy and takes them all and says, I can't believe this. Every person on this island needs a pair of shoes. Well, for me, every Albertan needs their freedoms protected. Every Albertans need a job that's protected. Every Albertan needs the freedom to associate and assemble and freedom of thought. That these personal attacks, these business attacks, that if you're not following the narrative are unacceptable, and we need to stand up for our neighbors. We need to stand there quickly and sharply. This grandmother desperately needed people to come to her rescue to open her business, and they haven't. She's in a desperate situation. I'll be talking with her again on Monday, but it's just wrong. It's just wrong what this government is doing to people's life. And as our own honorable member, then Dr. Dennis Modry has said, this government is doing more harm to the people and businesses of Alberta than the virus. And that's shameful and it's unacceptable. I'm just, like I say, so excited with the opportunity that we have here, so excited to see our membership growing and the enthusiasm that's there and what we can do to help. I'm looking forward to it, looking forward to see and meeting the new board. And as we work hard and got our ears to the ground wanting to hear what we need to do, but I just can't thank you enough, and may God bless each and every one of us that will be successful in this battle for freedom. But with that, I'll turn it back over to Rick, I guess. I'm not sure, but it's just great to be here, and thanks so much to each and every one of you.